Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to take a look at the disappearance of Janice Marie Hannigan. Now, who was Janice Hannigan? Janice Marie Hannigan was just 16 years old when she disappeared. She was kind, quiet, and thoughtful. A sophomore at White Swan High School, she loved cooking, beadwork, and watching football. Janice was also a proud member of the Yakama Nation. She stood 5 feet tall, weighed about 105 pounds, and had long black hair, brown eyes, and a small mole on her chin. She was the oldest of 7 kids, and after her parents separated, she stayed with her father in Hara, Washington, while her siblings lived with their mother in Buena. Now let's take a look at Janice's last known moments, which are quite unusual. On December 21st, 1971, just 3 days before she vanished, that's right, she disappeared on Christmas Eve, Janice was admitted to the hospital with bruises on her head and chest. The medical records don't explain what happened to her. Actually, from what I've read, it's not so much that the medical records don't explain what happened to her. It's just that some years later, they interviewed the physician that took care of her, or at least one of the physicians that was at the hospital at the time. And basically all he said was, yeah, she was there. We don't know where she went after she was discharged. He never mentioned too much about why she was there, and certainly not what caused her to have bruises on her head and chest. I think that that's extremely suspicious that she would have those bruises, especially severe enough to be hospitalized for several days. And then nobody knows what happened to the medical records. And so it's just as much a mystery as everything else that happened to her after her hospitalization. She was released on Christmas Eve. Again, this is in 1971, and that was the last time anyone saw her. She didn't make it home. Again, you have to ask yourself, was somebody, or did somebody pick her up and she never made it home? I mean, why wasn't there her dad or someone, and a responsible adult there to pick her up and bring her home? It doesn't sound like or seem like there was, and that doesn't make any sense to me. But none of this does, to be perfectly honest. She never showed up at her father's house, and she was never heard from again. Some agencies still report her missing date as March 1st, 1971, and that's 9 months off. Even the paperwork got it wrong. Again, she disappeared on Christmas Eve, December 24th, 1971. Her family reported her missing that same night, but back in the 70s, when a teenager vanished, authorities often chalked it up to a runaway. The urgency just wasn't there. That's true. I grew up in the 70s. I was a teenager in the 70s. She was a couple years older than me, but not so much older that I don't understand what the atmosphere was like. That was still a time when you had to wait 24 to 48 hours to report someone missing before the police would even do anything, sometimes even take a report. Now, that doesn't seem to be the case with Janice. It seems like they took the report, apparently, but nobody was in a big hurry to find her. And that, my friends, was disappearing. What disappearing in the 70s was all about. Despite the bruises, despite her quiet nature, despite everything, The case went cold fast. In addition, she's a missing Indigenous person, and that too could have added to the lack of urgency. I hate to say that, but it's a fact about missing Indigenous people as a whole, but especially women. No suspects, no clues, no trace. Wapato sits in the heart of the Yakama Reservation. In winter, the land is unforgiving, cold, open, and eerily quiet. It's a place where someone could disappear without anyone noticing. In November 1971, Janice was featured in a local newspaper. She was running to be queen of the Intertribal Veterans Day ceremonial in Toppenish. That photo shows her smiling in traditional regalia. But behind that slight smile was a girl burdened by family troubles. She was still reeling from her parents' separation, and just a month later, she was gone. Janice's sister, Trudy Lee Clark, was only 8 years old when Janice disappeared. Today, she's the family's most dedicated advocate, still searching for answers after more than 5 decades. That's right. If Janice were alive today, and we don't know whether she is or not, she would be in her 60s. She keeps a folder filled with what little paperwork exists: hospital notes, Janice's birth certificate, and the only photo she has left. Authorities once told her they suspected their father, but Trudy doesn't believe that. Others said Janice had been spotted in Seattle, but nothing ever came of that. Rumors piled up, truth never surfaced. Janice's story is part of something much larger and more devastating. On the Yakama Reservation alone, dozens of Native women have vanished. Some were later found murdered. Others, like Janice, are still missing. The crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women is real. For decades, these cases have been ignored, misclassified, or forgotten. Families like Janice's are left in the dark, chasing scraps of information. Was Janice taken by someone she knew? Did she leave with a friend, never knowing she wouldn't return? Did she leave the hospital on foot? Or was it something even darker? There's no body, no belongings, no proof of life or death. Janice Hannigan would be 70 years old today. I know I said in the 60s. I hate to admit I didn't do the math there. But yeah, she's a couple years older than I am, so she'd be 70. But all we have is silence. Janice's disappearance is more than a cold case. It's a wound, one that's never healed for her family, her tribe, and the many others still searching for their loved ones. Somewhere out there, someone knows what happened on that cold Christmas Eve. Until the truth comes to light, her memory lives on, in stories, in prayers, and in the hearts of those who refuse to give up, because no one should ever be forgotten, and Janice Hannigan still matters. If you have any information about Janice Hannigan, please contact the Yakama Nation Police Department or visit NamUS.gov. Help us bring attention to her story. Share this video. Please like, subscribe, and or leave a kind comment. You don't have to agree with me, but please be respectful. And if you care about unsolved cases like this one, please, if you know something, say something. Let's bring Janice home after more than 50 years without answers. I'll leave the contact information for the Yakama Nation Police Department and also the NamUS.gov website. Thank you. I appreciate your watching this video. I appreciate your attention to Janice's case. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.